G'day guys and gal, I know, I've made a few Lucius videos, and all of them are just as infuriating as the last. This guy arguably sucks more balls than Erebus, and that says a lot. At least Erebus actually does some stuff that justifies how insufferable he is. Lucius's entire shtick is thinking he's better than everyone, but then getting his ass handed to him time and time again. However, Lucius's new model was just unveiled, so what the hell. Lucius has been killed in fair honorable combat many times, as shown by his armor, each face being someone who has killed his ass. So at least today's video gets to shit on how many times Lucius the Eternal has been slain. Before we get started, I have some good news. After a break in Jan to ensure all Burning Hand orders were fulfilled and give the team time to rest, Major Minis is back in action and returning to its weekly launch schedule. I thought let's start with a mini close to my heart that absolutely slaps, so I'm proud to launch Nick Sharrow, the Wraith. This badass warrior is a legend amongst Battlemates 40 million, featuring a custom jump pack, 2 swords, and a lot of spooky bird stuff to drive fear into the hearts of all traitors. This model is printed in 8K using our own high-res, high-strength proprietary resin and is ready to ship worldwide for as little as $10 or free if you buy enough models. As a cheeky bonus, we're also doing a limited Trader Hunter bundle, which nets you Nick Sharrow and the Ravenlord Trader Hunter in one purchase for a discounted amount. If you don't paint models yourself, you can actually get Nick Sharrow or almost any other Major Mini pre-painted. I quite literally have thought of everything. Very excited to return to weekly releases. We have some obscenely cool shit on the way, and with how cheap or even free the shipping is, you won't need to wait for a few weeks after seeing a model you like in case you wanted to bundle it all together. Link is below. Today we'll go over every time Lucius has been killed that we know of. We can also briefly discuss what it would take to permanently kill him, and let's get into it. Lucius's first death is also one of his most iconic. Throughout the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy, Lucius was extremely insufferable about his skill, mainly because he had actually been beaten on multiple occasions. Garviel Loken, Azkalon, and Saul Tarvitz had all kicked his ass to varying degrees. However, it was his fights with Nakonai Shuriken that Lucius would finally have a taste of death. Nakonai was arguably the greatest Raven Guard warrior to ever live. He was a freak with his dual black blades, made more deadly by his expert use of his jump pack. However, what really made him a beast was his ability to Wraith Slip. This allowed him to temporarily go invisible or near invisible, a weaker version of Korax's own power, which would allow him to seemingly teleport around a battlefield or even behind enemies. Nakonai and Lucius would have their first brief duel when Perturabo and Fabius Baal's forces boarded an Iron Hand Shattered Legion ship. Lucius was shocked and excited that Nakonai matched or even exceeded him, leaving a cut on his face before withdrawing. Lucius was screaming for a rematch and he would soon get it. Now whilst Lucius did his best, Nakonai straight up outclassed him, beating him down and then stabbing him in both of his hearts, ensuring his death. Now there is a bit of confusion about why Nakonai didn't end up being Lucius's first victim of his unconsensual reincarnation power. Well, it's one of two reasons. First was Nakonai saw killing Lucius as akin to putting down a rabid dog. He took no pride in it, which is a prerequisite for Lucius to take over someone else's body and become reborn. Hence, Lucius only returned to life out of some miracle after the battle, which confused even Fabius, who had been inspecting his corpse and had already declared him dead. Basically, Slaanesh just intervened directly, similar to how Khorne has revived Khan before. However, I like to think that Slaanesh got the idea of how to creatively revive Lucius from how Nakonai killed him. Instead of just reviving him every time he died, what if she used their killer's pride to bring him back, with Nakonai being the inspiration due to the lack of pride he felt. Food for thought, but yes, Lucius still looked pretty normal after his first resurrection. The next death was actually pretty hilarious and even spawned numerous memes about how Lucius isn't even the best duelist of his own legion. After the heresy, the traitors were pretty bored. They were extremely weak and wounded, and most of their Primarchs were reforming in the warp after being brutally banished during the Siege of Terra, so they couldn't take on the Imperium. Hence, a lot of them turned on each other for the fun of it or started having gladiatorial battles. Lucius loved these gladiatorial matches and he won them time after time until he fought against Lord Commander Cyrus. It was a pretty dope duel, but to everyone's amazement, Cyrus actually outclassed Lucius and killed him fair and square. Now you would think Slaanesh would then favor Cyrus as he was the better warrior than Lucius, and it seems like a waste to sacrifice a better warrior to bring Lucius back, but that isn't how Slaanesh works. That's how Khorne works. For Slaanesh, she found Lucius entertaining and loved how much of an insufferable, arrogant prick he was. So over the next few days, Cyrus got extremely unwell, his nails, teeth, hair, and skin started falling off, and his dreams turned to horrific nightmares, until Lucius was reborn through his flesh in his new nightmarish form. Now it's unclear if Lucius had gotten more and more ugly every time he has returned, or if his first rebirth just made him fugly as fuck, but Lucius was here, with Cyrus's face imprinted on his armor, forever in torment. This would be Lucius's first true rebirth, but definitely not his last. Now from here on out, Lucius did become excessively hard to kill in a straight up duel, as although I do like to give him a lot of shit, he is still a beast of a warrior, and now he also had all the gifts that Slaanesh offered him. However, that didn't stop him from using bullshit hacks to come back from the dead, such as his next death and resurrection, which happened when Lucius stepped on a landmine and blew up. Now you'd think the dude would be done here. He was killed by an inanimate object, which also blew up with him. However, Slaanesh is a bitch and is the queen of loopholes apparently. The man who built the landmine, one of countless imperial citizens in that line of work, was proud of the work he did. Hence that pride technically counted, thus Lucius was reborn through him. It was pretty grim actually, as he was living with his family on an imperial world and appeared to get extremely sick until Lucius finally emerged. It's not said what happens next, but I assume Lucius went on to massacre the man's family in a brutal fashion. This example kind of shows that it's a lot less about feeling pride when killing Lucius and more about Slaanesh just bringing him back willy-nilly, with the curse of his resurrection just being an ideal flair. It was stated that when Lucius came back from this death, he had 7 faces on his armor, representing 7 deaths, one of which being Cyrus obviously, the other being the Mind Maker, but the other 5 were unknown. Almost as bullshit of a resurrection was when Lucius took on the Necron overlord known as the Phasing Sword, a master swordsman of the Necrons. Lucius loves testing his skill against the best the galaxy has to offer, so he often seeks out champions of other factions or even Chaos factions to battle against. So it's not a shocker that he took on one of the greatest Necron duelists. It's also not a shocker that the Necron fucked him up, since the best of the best Necrons can be obscenely overpowered. There was a Necron who I think was called the Immortal that completely licked a Wordbearer force, as they had no idea how to kill him, so he just slaughtered them one by one. So the Phasing Sword likewise would have been a beast. Now Necrons don't have souls or a connection to the warp. In fact, they often have the opposite, with a lot of tech that directly counters the warp. Yet Lucius still managed to resurrect via this Necron's body. It was said that the Necron did feel a cold sense of pride at beating Lucius, which yes, Necrons can indeed feel that, but it's still hard to explain. The Necron should have been able to blast itself with anti-warp tech to banish the curse, since it does take a while for Lucius to emerge. Likewise, they could have put him in stasis, effectively trapping Lucius. The only real explanation is that if enough warp power is focused, it can overcome anti-warp power. For example, the Emperor not being bothered by the Sisters of Silence, or the Grey Knight Hyperion removing a man's blankness when he was a child. So the direct attention of Slaanesh on a Necron could create this result. But honestly, it seems like it was more so done for shock value by the author and to make Lucius's curse the most obnoxious thing ever. The most recent Lucius death I'm aware of actually came in a Hammer and Bolter episode. You know that Warhammer Plus show that is kind of shit but also kind of sick? The Exorcist chapter, a chapter known for their ability to resist demons because they literally allow themselves to be possessed for fun, encounter an Emperor's Children's strike team led by Lucius. Lucius duels a Judicia and Chaplain at the same time, with the Judicia being an extremely deadly swordsman. Using his Tempora Mortis device, the Judicia was able to briefly freeze a strike from Lucius before then cutting him in half. The Chaplain then burnt the corpse. Even though the Judicia wasn't arrogant or celebrating this victory, he still felt pride in the clean kill, and as such, Lucius was able to resurrect via his body and would go on to also kill the Chaplain. An interesting note here is that Lucius was able to use the Judicia's biometrics to access a secure room via scanning the Judicia's screaming face on his armor. As another note, Lucius is faster and stronger than normal Space Marines, but not by much. Other Space Marines can block, parry, and counter his attacks. He relies almost entirely on his skill, which is why he's died so many times. Now looking at Lucius's new model, official art, and so on, he has well over a dozen faces on his armor, thus we don't actually know how he died the majority of the time. However, knowing Lucius, he basically travels the galaxy searching for worthy opponents, and with Slaanesh having a special interest in the Eldar, I would not be shocked if a number of those faces were Eldar champions like Autarchs. Likewise, a fair few of those deaths would have just been battlefield related, like a well-placed artillery shot, since Slaanesh doesn't seem to care much about actively protecting Lucius and finds the resurrections hilarious. The guardsman or Tau, or whoever fired that shot, would have been proud of their shot, taking out an enemy champion, thus they would have been stuffed. Even stuff like orbital strikes, Slaanesh would still find a way to make it work. I'm not really sure how it would work if a Tyranid killed and ate Lucius, since pride isn't even a part of their vocab, but I'm sure Slaanesh would have an answer for that. We probably just haven't seen it yet because the authors don't. So just quickly now, how would I kill Lucius? Well, Chaos is all about symbology. You'd think that killing Lucius then killing yourself would mean he would have no one to respawn through, since no one really takes pride in another person killing themselves, but since that's a cheese way to do it, I feel like Slaanesh would have some kind of failsafe for that. Now, you would honestly need someone like Guilliman and the Emperor's Sword, or Asaman and his sword to do the trick, or if Nakonai Sharikin is taken out of stasis, that could be an extremely symbolic way to do the job. But with this dickhead getting a new model, I doubt he's going anywhere anytime soon. He's just hoping he gets humiliated a few times along the way. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up Nick Sharrow, the Wraith. Hit the subscribe button, hit the real subscribe button for more Eternal content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.